G'day, Chief. Welcome to the Inner Chief podcast and this special episode, which we call the Mini Chief. These are short, sharp highlights from our fabulous guests, where you get a 5 to 10 minute snapshot from their episode. Right, Chief, without further ado, here is the Mini Chief episode for this week with Justin McNamara, Psychometrics Guru. Okay, now let's talk about more behaviour-based tests. Tell us about how you perform best in those, because I think that would be very interesting, because I think sometimes you can try and fake it to maybe try and give the right answer, but does that cost you later? Like, tell us how they work and how to get the best outcome for you.
Yeah, sure thing. So from a psych angle, we always encourage people to be open and honest when they do it and to trust their first response, about how strongly they might agree with one question or, which question best defines them. Now, you're right, they can be faked and people do fake them. But the challenge is multifaceted. So one is people who will fake on those quite often won't fit the job that they're actually going for. So, if we fast forward, you've said that you enjoy a fast-paced environment and, you love responding to setbacks and all the pace and excitement that comes from that, but you're actually not one of those people. When you're in that type of job, you're likely to find it really stressful. Maybe you prefer to work in a more cautious and slow and deliberate manner. So you actually find it you have a lot of inner churn, that you're being forced to make decisions with limited time, limited resources. Maybe there's a bit of fractious relationships between you and your coworkers because they keep pushing you for decisions faster than you're comfortable to make them. Alternatively, other people will see that you just don't fit in. So you might be, it might be highlighted to you that you don't fit that culture. And so you might find yourself 3 to 6 months down the track looking for another job. The other side of this is some companies, so my own, if you like, we use a profile scoring method. And so we'll score people against a exact job. And so that means that if someone is going through this and they're trying to fake and amplify multiple aspects of their personality, they might actually overfit for a particular job. And what I mean by that is when we match someone to a job, we use a bit of a Goldilocks scale. And that means that, just like with Goldilocks, the porridge can be too cold, too hot, or just right? There's a sweet spot somewhere on that continuum. We have these sweet spots across all of our different areas of personality. So someone who's really ramping up and saying, yes, they're very assertive, might actually come out as being too assertive for a specific role. So they might have overfaked. Other questionnaires out there will actually have questions in there designed to catch people out. And that might impact how that person's application is viewed on the whole. So I'd probably discourage people from trying to present themselves as significantly different than how they actually are in the world of work.
So just go, as you said, trust your first response and answer as honestly as you can, and it'll give the best possible outcome.
Well, I think you've got the best possible chance of that job being the right job for you.
Okay, now what happens if you bottled it? Like you get to the end of either the cognitive ability test or behavior-based test, and you think, I've just got that so wrong, and now they've got a report or a test on me, and I'm going to look bad. What do you do?
Well, if you've been open and honest with your personality responses, you can't bottle it, right? So that's probably an important point, right? If you've gone through those types of assessments and you've just given a true and honest reflection of you, then if it's the right fit, then it's meant to be. So you can let go of the anxiety around that. Bottling it for the cognitive ability is different though. And for me, one, this comes down to preparation, right? So have you done enough practice? And then two, do you have a legitimate reason that might have impacted you bottling it? And so, I gave one before where someone had, they're very dutiful. There was a deadline for do the testing. They'd been on some leave. They'd done lots of travel. They were jet lagged. They did it in the office, being distracted and multitasking with others. And they made contact and said, look, I don't think I've done my best performance. Here are the legitimate reasons why. And in that instance, we let them redo it, right? We allowed them to retest. And, test companies and individual companies will have their own policies around that. On the flip side, I had another candidate recently. They were going for an analytical role, and they had their results fed back to them, and they didn't perform well on the questions relating to solving problems with numbers. At that point, they claimed that there was a lot of internet dropout, and that impacted their test performance, and they wanted to redo the assessment. Now, given we're technology companies, we actually monitor, every keystroke that is made. And I was able to very clearly show that, how that individual responded to that part of that specific assessment was no different to all the other assessments. And there was no evidence of the internet dropping out. In that instance, we were comfortable that the results from the test were accurate. And those are the results that were going to be used going forward in the recruitment test. Probably the final point I'd add is the tests should just form one point or, one part of a wider decision-making process. So, companies who make decisions will generally have multiple data points they take into consideration rather than just one in isolation. So people shouldn't worry too much about one specific test.
Just one final point before we talk a bit about the future of psychometrics is feedback. How important is it to give feedback to candidates in relation to their tests? If there's a lot of people, how do you do that?
Sure. I mean, ideally feedback, more broadly, feedback from the recruitment process should sort of mirror the investment made by the candidate. And so if they're doing, a quick 30-minute test at home, then that can be, very email automated feedback versus if they've come into an interview, then you'd expect maybe hopefully sort of like telephone-based feedback. So that's sort of the general philosophy I've got. It's a bit of a funnel. Yes. So feedback, yes, candidates should be getting feedback. Lots of them don't. And the way it should be done, and if I think about my system, and I know some other systems do it as well, is there should be an automatically generated candidate feedback report that can be shared with candidates at the appropriate juncture, right? So you might find, what's an example, I've got live testing with a graduate company at the moment. They're testing hundreds of graduates, and testing is one of the first things they've done, but they then have assessment centers and final stage interviews and offers, and they might want to release all the feedback once they've made the offers. Right? They don't want, that feedback contaminating how a candidate might try and adjust their style in an interview, for example. So I think that's completely fine. Companies should have discretion over when in the recruitment cycle they're sharing this feedback, but they definitely should be sharing it. And with Psychometrics, that's quite easy to do because you can automate it with feedback reports.
All right, Chief, there we have it for this week with your mini Chief episode. All the show notes can be found at chiefmaker.com/380. And if you would like to stay in touch and hear all about some of the best resources that you can find anywhere in the world to improve your performance at work, go to chiefmaker.com/subscribe. Now, Chief, if you're yet to rate the episode and subscribe, I hope you'll do so soon. It helps others see the magnificent value that the chiefs and gurus bring to their life and career. So make sure you hit subscribe on your podcast app now, give it a 5-star rating if you think it's worthy, and leave a short review about your favourite episode. Righto, Chiefs, as always, remember to stay epic.